I'm Julia, and welcome back to Race to Win, the sailing podcast. We've done all 3 races in the San Francisco Midwinter Series, narrated by champion sailor and quantum sailmaker Will Paxton. The first race, there was about 10 to 15 knots of wind. The second, there was about 5 to 10 knots of wind. And now this third race is a drifter, max wind speed 2.5, maybe 3 knots. Will Paxton again did very well, took a bullet in this race. So we asked him if he could share some of his secrets for good speed in light air.
Well, just 2 things to say about that, and that is to have the crew sit forward and leeward. And so you're going to do 2 things here. One is without any pressure in the sails, you're going to use gravity to keep the camber shape in the sails. And this is why I like to design Dacron sails for smaller boats like the Express 27, because of the inherent rigidity of the fabric helps the sail hold its camber and not just hang there limply. The crew weight leeward also buries forward, and leeward also buries the bow in the water, and the bow being pushed further underwater increases buoyancy, and so it allows the greater surface area of the back of the boat to pick up out of water and reduce drag as well.
Good light air racing is often surrounded by mystery, as these fast boats are seeming to ghost by in a special wind that no one else has. And so there are a lot of rumors about how these people accomplish this. We went over a few of these common tips and tricks for better light air sailing and asked Will what he thought worked best. First off is the boom kicker. Some people think a boom kicker, which helps hold up the boom and increase mainsail twist, is key to good light air performance, but Will doesn't sail with one at all.
In very light air, and we're talking about wind of, say, 4 knots and under, and 4 knots would have been windy today. It was much lighter than that. It does help to push up on the boom and create more twist in the main. The twist is very, very important in the light air. You're trying to encourage the moving upper air to attach to the sail and move down the sail. I don't have one personally because 98% of all the racing we're going to do is going to be in 5 knots plus, and I hate having the weight, and also I think that the solid boom kicker is an obstruction to the crew tacking cleanly across the boat, so I just don't have one. Oh, also a trick I've seen if you're in a spot and you're really desperate to get some twist to the main, because a lot of us carry our spinnaker pole on the boom, is you can tighten the topping lift. And the topping lift can act as a improvised boom lift if need be.
Another thing sailors do in light air is instead of using a large sail to catch more wind when it's light, they'll switch to a 95% or so jib like a number 3. The theory being that in light air, the airflow will find it easier to attach to a smaller sail. We asked Will to elaborate a bit on this theory.
Definitely purpose-built light air sails, whether they're spinnakers or drifters, are smaller than the maximum possible sail, because the smaller sail will fly better with less pressure. Like in the Express, I would almost always keep the Genoa. You just got to keep the sail eased way far out. You've got to keep a gap between the 2 sails to encourage airflow, and so that the wind will work in the sail plan and not go around it as if it were in one piece. If it were really bumpy water and the Genoa was collapsing in, yeah, I might seriously consider the number 3. A thing I tried in the race on Sunday that was equally as frustratingly light is I actually eased the Genoa halyard down about 3 feet. So the foot of the sail was actually on the deck, and the top of the sail was wide open, and there was as much weight as possible off of the leech. And we actually got that to work for a while, but that's a desperate situation.
Everyone has their own idea of the best trim for their boat in these tricky light air conditions. Some people like as much camber as possible. Some people like to get their sails really flat for different reasons. Now, Will had great boat speed in this light air, so we asked him his thoughts on the variations for light air sail trim.
A rounder sail is more powerful. A round sail also encourages air to attach to it and flow around it as if it were an airfoil, better than just a flat board. The one thing you want to be careful of, you can see in the video that my backstay is very loose in a lot of it, and that's because in San Francisco Bay in light air, it's protected body like a lake, and it is super flat. If it were bumpy or bouncy at all, I would pull the backstay on just to stop the sails from flapping or shivering in the light air and a little bump. Sail flaps, the air will detach from it. If the boat is really steady and your crew doesn't move and everybody's forward and leeward, you keep that backstay loose and the sails as round and powerful as possible.
So I've selected two boats here, Diane and then Motorcycle Irene, which is Paxton's boat. Great sailors on both boats. They start right next to each other, sail virtually the same course and in the same body of water. But after about 10 minutes, which is nothing on a 40-minute leg, Paxton has managed to create about 150 meters of separation, getting ahead of Diane.
Well, the reason that I started up at the pin was because even if I was late there, you were going to have clear air the entire way. And our crew does a very, very good job of settling into a motionless forward and leeward position with the sails holding steady and everything eased and just taking advantage of every puff possible. There's one thing that happens in light air is that the air wants to move up at the masthead. It doesn't want to come down to the water at all. So the weathermost boat will see the most wind in your sails, and then for possibly 4 or 5 boat lengths around the boat, the air may move vertically over and around the boat and create a much bigger lee situation for much further downwind than you would ever feel in, say, 10 knots of breeze. It might block the wind for 100 yards downwind because there's so little pressure to go down, the air just goes up and over in the path of least resistance around a pack of boats. So only the guy on the weather side is going to have pressure and everybody else is going to have nothing to leeward.
Tacking in light wind is tricky, to say the least. So we ask our expert here for some of his tips for surviving this maneuver in these kind of really super light conditions.
Tacking in light air is very expensive, so you got to make sure you really, really, really want to do it. In this case, I had seen which way the tide was going, and I was afraid that if you kept going past the mark, we were going to get swept down tide of the mark. So I was kind of just making a move to set myself up tide of the mark and wait and see what the wind did next. Here this is a full roll tack. We call the bow and the mid bow and the mid person are all down below hiking on the leeward side to help the boat tip to leeward. Everybody roll tack down below. The bow person came on the deck, helped the genoa around. And what we want to try and do here is in the light air tack or a jibe, if you've got a full batten in your sail in an express or any boat, is kind of let the boat get around and everyone get sorted and settled down. Don't flail away at the main immediately to pop the batten. You kind of want the boat to settle down first. And you want everyone to stop moving as soon as possible. So as soon as the sails stop shaking and the boat heels to leeward, then you can begin accelerating. So you just want to get to that settled down position as soon as you can.
Although Will won this race in the end, he didn't lead the entire time. Here you can see the boat Make Me Smile is a good over 200 meters ahead of him, all the way up the windward leg and around the mark. But Will manages to just sneak up and kind of destroy him on the downwind leg. Look at that. He sails 10 minutes faster. And we can watch him making his move here. So he obviously had better boat speed, sailed a way shorter course, and had a great leg. Look at that, over 280 meters ahead. How did you do it?
Well, the number one rule in a midwinter's race that's very, very light air and it's unpredictably shifty is don't panic. You stick to your guns. You don't give up. Something's going to change. And we did this run as did Make Me Smile, 3/4 of it without even putting the spinnaker up. We kept the same mode that we had going upwind, which was forward and leeward, and just trying to make the Genoa work as an asymmetric spinnaker almost and carry apparent wind downwind. Another principle in midwinter's downwind sailing is the boat ahead is not always the best place to be, and as the boat behind, we could see a wind line coming, and so we very slowly inched our way over to get a little building, 3-knot puff, which felt like a gale from the west, and accelerated in it and did a really nice clean set to our spinnaker, and carried our spinnaker up to Make Me Smile. And it was very borderline of whether the course was too tight to carry the spinnaker or if it was going to be too light to carry the spinnaker. And I think that Make Me Smile might have initially thought on the weather leg that they were going to set their kite on a port pole and fetch the weather mark. So they had their spinnaker on the starboard side We had our spinnaker on the port side, so we were able to pop, set, close gauge, while making me smile, hesitated, and then ultimately they slowed their boat down a lot when they tried to move their spinnaker gear around, and we got by them in the puff before they got that sorted out.
Well, thanks again to Mr. Will Paxton for an awesome race breakdown. I know I learned a lot, and I look forward to seeing you next time here on Race to Win, the sailing podcast. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can find more on our website, www.racecues.com/podcast.